Good morning. Calling the Finance Committee to order with Alderwoman Finlayson and most of Alderman Payon present. What did you do to your hand, Fred?
Had a little surgery yesterday.
Oh, well, I hope that went well.
Hope so.
First order of business is approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of the agenda as written.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The agenda is approved. Next order of business is approval of the minutes from our previous meeting.
I'll move approval of the minutes for the February 17th meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The ayes have it. So first item is supplemental appropriations, SA 2521, which is a nice amount of money. Madam Finance Director, do you want to walk us through this?
Yes, this is the supplemental appropriation to spend an additional $100,000 that we've received from the Bureau of the Treasury through Anne Arundel County. The Federal CARES Act, they're giving us an extra $100,000 to help us continue to fund the Take Care program.
And what is that program?
I believe that's what they're now calling Laura Gutierrez Community Outreach Program. And that's correct.
That's right. It's that group of interns that we hired early on. There was a Hispanic group and an African American group, and this enables us to keep them on beyond what we had originally planned, which was the end of the calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
What do they do?
They do public outreach to those communities for everything related to COVID. So they've been tremendously successful, especially with the Hispanic community, in making them aware of the precautions and things that need to be done to not get COVID. And because of that, the COVID numbers in the Hispanic community have dropped way down over the last 6 months or so.
And does this also fund TOLA's efforts for like the VIP and those programs?
No, different program.
Different programs, all right. Is there, yes, Alderwoman Finlayson.
Yes, this is very timely. I had a discussion with TOLA just yesterday to ask about our numbers. I noted on Monday night that the mayor in his report gave us pretty glowing statistics about the impact that this program is having in the Hispanic community. And so I was questioning what additional efforts are being made in the African American community. And so I guess my question is, will these...
Sheila, you're freezing. We are not getting your audio.
Okay.
I can hear her.
Can you hear me now?
I could hear you before.
Okay, Ross, you were frozen. But anyway, so my question is whether these additional dollars will help us where there seems to be a deficit in reaching the African American community. The numbers that the mayor gave us on Monday night illustrated that the program has
Sheila,
been
can you
successful.
hear us? Because we are not getting you.
I get her fine.
I can hear you.
Ross, you're frozen.
We can hear you as well here, so.
Alderwoman Finlayson, if I could answer that. So it allows us, so during the summer, we had two groups of interns. One group was working with Laura, the Hispanic group. One was working with TOLA, the African American group. We've now combined those all into one group and they're all working with Laura. But they're providing the same services to both communities of public outreach.
This could be a short meeting.
More familiar with what the regulations are, what needs to be done, what the safety precautions are, all of those types of things.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And Tola suggested that it wasn't that somebody else, and maybe he did say that Laura was the one.
Sheila said.
Ross is obviously not muted anymore.
Don't tell him that.
But I would hope given the statistics that the mayor shared with us, that we would make some conscious effort to get the numbers in a better place in the African American community, just like we've been doing in the Hispanic community. I guess my second question is this still in the testing phase? Are we now working with the community to encourage the vaccinations?
Yes, we're encouraging the vaccinations, and we're going to try and set up clinics here in Annapolis. We've had a lot of discussions with the health department about that, using local churches, other places that are convenient for people to come to, trying to tie into some of the community leaders to encourage people to come once we have those set up. So there's been a lot of discussions, but those discussions all center on vaccinations and not so much on testing.
Well, I took part in I asked the question, I think it was Monday or Tuesday night, Monday night, with a town hall that included Dr. Kalyana Rama, and inquired specifically about the city, because I have been concerned for months now that while the city is, as a major urban center in the county, a large population of African Americans, and no concentrated efforts have been made here to vaccinate. And we did a drive-through flu clinic as a practice for just this kind of incident, and we're not utilizing it. And when Dr. K came before us, I guess in January, he said they were talking about the stadium. Well, it's going nowhere. And so, I am talking to people, and I'm working my way up to the food chain, to the governor's office, to see what we can do to bring testing to Annapolis. I know there are pockets throughout, but the city of Annapolis should be a major area where we have dedicated testing, and not that our residents should have to go to the community college or to the casino. That's a great disadvantage, especially for the population that we should be targeting. So just to put that out there, it's on, and I'm putting it on everybody's radar. And therefore my question the other night at that town hall, so.
Yeah, in the stadium, all of the agreements for the stadium have all been worked out. The only thing that they don't have is vaccines. So they need to have a lot of vaccines to set that up, because that's supposed to be a mass vaccination site. So as soon as they get an adequate number, they're gonna set that up, because all of the arrangements have been made. They just need vaccines now.
Oh, good to hear. Glad that that's being done. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Alderwoman Finlayson, although I have to admit I was not hearing much of it. But returning to SA 2521, is there a motion to recommend approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Alderman Gay.
Yeah, thanks. So to be clear, this is from the original $4.4 million we received from the county, or this is additional?
This is an additional 100,000. We got $4,250,000. Then we got 550,000 in the beginning of December, and this is another 100,000 because they think this program is so important to continue.
So to be clear,
you're going to ask me to add that up?
No, I'm not going to ask you to add it up. I'm just trying to figure out that so they can give us $100,000 for this program that is related to COVID. So are we able to request now money from the county? Is this how this is working? They're financing our request for COVID related issues?
Difference does it make?
So,
did you apply for this grant, $400,000, or did they just say?
I think there was a discussion, Alderman Gay, I think there was a discussion between the mayor and the county exec that this program was going to terminate at the end of the year if we didn't get additional money. And so they have found additional money, and that's this money that they're giving to us. So this will allow the Take Care program to continue through this entire calendar year.
Okay. I wish they would have gave us more, not to be greedy, but to be greedy, because to Sheila's point, you know, there's so, or to Alderwoman Finlayson's point, there's so much going on in our communities. And part of what I'm figuring out is that people are having the virus and reporting it to like property management and stuff like that. And they're just either dealing with the symptoms themselves or in their apartments and, you know, people coming in and out, or it's just a lot. And there is, you know, I don't think we have sufficient, you know, investments in place in those communities to help out. In particular, I know we talked even last week still about if we don't have the vaccines, then let's just get the testing there, you know, in the communities more often so that people just at least know they have the virus instead of just walking around the community, passing it around to everybody. You know, we've had certain communities, I'm not going to out the community, but where a significant number of the residents have had this virus and it's still going on. And we're trying to get stuff, you know, together, but we need support and assistance. We need financing. And so, yeah, I would just hope that they would find other dollars for purposes like that, as Sheila mentioned.
Again, I'd move to approval of SA 2521.
I did second that already.
I thought so.
I think we lost the chair.
Well, is there any further discussion?
I'm calling him right now.
I'll be a commercial break. I had the opportunity.
Vote on it. No reason to take a break at all.
No. I had the, it was a joke. I had the opportunity to sit down with Laura Gutierrez and understand what she does. And that was well worth it. This money is not going to just one individual, but an entire department but effort that she's created to reach out to both communities. And, you know, she is reaching out to the Hispanic is because of the language barrier, and she's door knocking and all that. And, you know, told me about how 70% of the Hispanic community in our city doesn't have health care. And, but I just welcome you to sit down with her and realize that this money is leveraged as far as she could take it. And she's embracing the efforts with the African-American community as well. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Fred, I see Takia's hand up.
Yes, Takia.
Chairman.
Did you want to take over as chair?
No.
I just did it because.
He said.
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
I talked to Ross and he said, Alderman Payon, you can go ahead and chair it until he gets squared away. He's restarting his computer, so once he, you know, gets situated, we'll let you know.
We'll go slow. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of positive recommendation signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
There are.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. There you go.
All right. All right. So I was an aye on that as well. Thank you, Fred, for taking over. I don't know what's going on, but hopefully we're back. Next item on the agenda is SA 2621, U.S. Department of Justice. This is a dribble more money for the burn grant.
Yeah, exactly. They're getting a little bit extra on their 21 grant, an extra $1,170, more than we had appropriated.
Is there any discussion? Is there a motion to recommend approval?
I move that we recommend approval.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Committee, with your largesse, I'd like to go back to the previous question because I couldn't hear much of what you said, Alderwoman Finlayson, and very little of what you said, Alderman Gay. Did everybody get their questions satisfied on that the last essay?
I was satisfied. City Manager Gerald shared some information with us. My concern had been the fact that we are having a significant impact in the Hispanic community, and I want to see the same impact in the African American community. And I've been assured that that is in the works, so I'm good.
Who's spearheading that? I mean, I agree with you, Alderwoman, but lots of times I don't have the sense who's driving us forward.
Well, so when this was set up last summer, early on in the COVID time, there were two separate groups. So Laura had the group of Hispanic interns, and Tola had the group of African American. Because they continued through the fall and towards the end of the year. And we had planned to terminate this at the end of the year because we thought the CARES money was going to expire. But when we found out that this additional money was going to be made available, and Tola is very busy on the other programs he has. So Laura has actually consolidated these groups. We have all the members that were, but now they're all working with Laura as a consolidated group.
Alderman Gay?
Yeah, this is actually related to, I apologize. This is related to SA 2621. I'd like to request to see a report of what the grant funding has been used on for like the last 2 fiscal years for the city of Annapolis. Because I'm just doing some research on what the actual Edward Brand Memorial Justice Assistance Program is for. And so I'd like to see what we've been using the funding for.
Is that largely from police, Jody? Yeah, okay.
Getting a piece of paper to write it down.
I think that's a good question, Dwan.
Isn't this the second allocation of funding for the from the Byrne grant? I think we had a list when we talked about this previously.
It does several things. It's a big grant, and there's all kinds of.
So I don't recall if we've gotten any other supplemental allocations. A lot of times with these grants, the total amount we're getting is not known until later in the year. And we take an estimate that the department gives us at the beginning of the year when we develop the budget. And in this case, the actual amount awarded was a little higher than what we have appropriated. But to your question, I don't recall if there was another addition to the grant this year or not. I have to look through the supplement.
I think the specific question, and it's one that I think I share, the Byrne grants cover a whole host of different things. I think things like school bus safety and various awareness programs in the community, they're usually very large. At least $250,000, if not more. And it comes in different varieties. So I think my sense of your question, Alderman Gay, is what is it doing? And I think that may be a more relevant question at budget time, but certainly if it's something that you need to know now, it's a fair question.
I didn't need to know it right now. And I was asking, just for her to send that to me on the side. Okay.
No side deals. All right. Are we ready for a motion and a vote on the SA 2621?
Do we have a motion on the floor, Mr. Chair?
You already voted on it.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right, so we're ready to move on to SA 2721, the Maryland Department of Natural Resources.
Hold on just a second. I was trying to contact Jackie Gild because I thought she was going to attend the meeting. This is a new grant we're getting, $15,000 to do a campaign to reduce plastic pollution. And this particular campaign is going to focus on the reduction of the cigarette butts being thrown in the street. And I think she was going to attend the meeting and give you more details about it because it is a new grant that we're trying to get.
May I ask, Ms. Dickinson, have we gotten the grant and is this an accepted so we can appropriate it or what's this?
No, we haven't finalized. We got the grant award, but we have to send them in further paperwork to enable us to get the grant. Here she is. Here she is.
They finally connected my audio. I've been listening.
Jackie, the question is, do we have an award per se already and we're just finalizing the paperwork?
Yes, we do. Yeah, DNR, I've been checking in with them and apparently they are no one is in the office at all and they need hard signatures. They have apologized and said it's just hard to move it through their process, but I expect it any day now. We've done everything on our end and we're just waiting for their final sign off.
Mr. Chair, are you ready for a motion to approve SA 2721?
I don't see him now, so we may have lost him again.
We lost him again.
Okay, Acting Chair Payon, are you ready for a motion to approve SA 2721? You're on mute.
Yes, ma'am. I had my hand raised to make the same motion. I'll second it.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick question, Director Gao, what is the plan with this? Because when I seen it, I'm thinking cigarette butt littering. I mean, that's a huge issue. So it will be signage. I mean, it's a huge issue, but I'm thinking reduce plastic pollution. I was thinking the bay with water bottles or something, you know?
Okay, so we worked on a campaign last year. We had funding through DNR. We also worked with the Annapolis Green to reduce plastic in general. They ran a whole campaign where they had worked with mostly the hospitality sector, with the restaurants, bars, hotels, and some nonprofits and other businesses wanted to join in, and they provided them with alternatives. And they had signage on tables and it was an education campaign to reduce plastic use, and many of the businesses signed pledges to reduce their plastic use overall. Many are not using plastic, no plastic straws or plastic cutlery or anything. However, during COVID, things have gone backwards a little bit because they feel it's more sanitary. But for this one, this is just cigarette butt litter, so this will be purely education. And there will be signs. There will be in areas where we can put up the receptacles on light posts or on other poles. We will have the receptacles from TerraCycle where cigarettes can be disposed, and then they will be collected and then returned to TerraCycle, who recycles the plastic. There's a lot of plastic in a cigarette butt. Those little strands are actually plastic. And then they'll return the empty receptacles back to us. There will also be carry along type of cigarette ashtrays that will be dispensed. There will be people on the street. Annapolis Green is going to run the campaign for us, and with their volunteers and their crew, they will be talking to people and educate them when they pass out the portable ashtrays. And then they'll be educating also the restaurant owners and bar owners. You know, like Acme is a big spot where kids hang out on the street and smoke and drop their cigarettes. So you can, as you walk along, and now I'm talking about this, you'll start to notice how much cigarette butt litter is actually on the street, in front of Trader Joe's, in front of some of the bus stops. So there will be signage, there will be receptacles, there will be education materials.
Could a part of the campaign though be, because as you're saying this, even the scent of it makes me nauseous, and so I feel like people walking around with portables, that just makes it. Can part of the campaign be designating smoke areas away from the general public, so that you aren't walking up and down Main Street and there are like these massive crowds of people smoking in front of establishments? Could a part of the campaign be saying, hey, like here, smoke here, with your ash and dispense here?
We haven't incorporated that into the campaign. We can consider it. It's mostly about don't throw your cigarettes on the ground because they are a problem for the water and for aquatic species and other animals. And it's litter and it's unsightly. So no, we haven't considered that, but I will make a note and talk to Annapolis Green about that. I don't know if the city wants to just say, you can only smoke in this area or that area. I mean, that's an issue beyond this campaign. But we can educate people about the effects of, smoke on humans as well as on aquatic life and wildlife.
So I'm assuming that we don't have on the books anything in the code that would designate smoking areas and public places?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of SA 2721, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed since Alderman Arnett is not with us. All right. Next item on the agenda. It is SA 2821, a grant. State of Maryland Governor's Office of Crime, Youth, and Victim Services, a $20,000 grant. Annapolis First Amendment protest. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move a favorable recommendation for SA 2821. And I would ask that Ms. Dickinson give us some background, especially as it relates to silence, protest, armed march.
This is some grant money that we've gotten as reimbursement for the protests that had to be staffed by the police department surrounding the inauguration in the few days before and during the inauguration. So this is reimbursement money coming back to us.
Okay, is it fairly represent about what we spent?
That I cannot tell you. That I don't know. This is something the police department initiated, trying to get some reimbursement funds for. I did not provide them with a calculation of what they spent, but they tracked that themselves, so they may already know what they put in.
Hey, look, whether it's higher or lower, I for one, am not going to say no to $20,000 of reimbursement. So is there any further discussion? Seeing none.
We need you to second it, Alderman Payon.
Okay, I second the motion. There being no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And there appear to be no nays, so we will unanimously recommend approval of this. The next item on the agenda is ID, wait a minute, 1121, liquor licenses.
Computer.
Ross,
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm back now.
Yes, there you are.
But I don't know how long I'll be here. I'm on the phone with Julian right now.
You want to lead the discussion about liquor license fees?
Actually, I'd like to end the discussion about liquor license fees. Julian, let's see how long I last. All right, thank you. I don't see how there's any way that we can be doing anything with liquor license fees, given the status of our budget and the fragility of all of our negotiations going into fiscal 23. And I also would have a real problem considering suspending these fees and not taking up every other fee. I mean, how do we make a decision? One fees get paid, another set don't. So for me, I think we've had discussion. We've considered it, and we've seen the finances from the finance director, and I think it's pretty much out of our reach.
Are there any other fees that we receive that are as large as the liquor license fees, Madam Finance Director?
I'd have to look at, if you add all the permitting together, those probably exceed the amount that we get for license fees. But as far as types of permits, I think the liquor licenses are the largest total.
Yeah.
For type, by type.
How about short-term rental fees?
Short-term rental fees, yeah, but that's not a permitting. Oh, the permitting fees, I don't know, but there's two pieces. There's the permitting fee and there's the taxes that we collect. The taxes are pretty significant. The permitting fees, I'd have to try to look that up because it goes into an account with a lot of other fees.
Be good, Ross, be good.
So, I mean, I've stated my position.
Alderman Gay.
Well, I'm not on the committee. I think Alderwoman Finlayson had her hand up first, so I'll defer to her and then I'll go.
Alderwoman Finlayson. Thank you, Alderman Gay.
Thank you. I guess I had asked at a previous meeting that we look at options. I don't disagree with what Alderman Arnett has said, but I think it is fair to make sure that we've considered potential options. What would it mean to local businesses if we did reduce their license fees by 10%? Would it save a business? You know, I think we have, to weigh the overall vitality of our economy with, what we do as far as our fiscal responsibility is concerned. So I just wanted us to have all of the information so that we could make a decision based upon the numbers. So that was my interest.
So I think we got that table that showed us all of the grants, those $20,800 grants that they got for COVID relief.
That was the average, wasn't it?
Oh, there he goes.
Yeah.
We had the list of all the grants of 20. Stephen Rice had given us a list.
They're in distress. I think there are all kinds of other industries that are also in distress. But I for one,
you're cutting in and out again.
Use your iPad.
We initially gave you the list of all of the business types and the totals that we collect from them. Stephen Rice gave you the list of those who got the $20,000 grants. And then this morning I sent to you something that Ms. Gaines pulled together for us regarding how many are paying bifurcated, because right now they have the option of splitting the payment in two and paying them, delaying the second payment. And that list will show you for the last 3 licensing cycles, how many chose to split their payments. And I just sent that this morning. So that should be in your inbox.
That's quite a few. Alderwoman Finlayson, were you?
Yes, I was going to ask, could we ask City Manager Gerald if he's given this any thought? One way or another, or no? I mean,
I've given it a lot of thought, and right now we're talking with our unions about them giving up some of their compensation. So it's difficult for me to recommend something like this when we're asking our employees to take pay reductions next year.
Mm-hmm. And I wasn't suggesting that you don't give everything thought. I just wanted to hear what you were thinking along these lines. Thank you.
Alderman Payone, I think you're in charge now because we've lost the chairman again. So
Maybe we ought to send a search party out for Ross. All right. Is there any further discussion about that? Well, there are no motions. So anybody else have anything? Alderman Gay.
Thank you. Yeah, one, I'm not seeing that email this morning breaking down.
24 came in at 10:20.
I sent it to the committee and to Kia and to the city manager. I didn't copy everybody. I can forward that to you.
Yeah, if you could.
Yeah.
And so I get the concerns that everyone has made. And obviously I'm not on the committee, but this is my opinion. So I think it would be helpful if we could create some structured payment plan or assistance for these businesses because, look, that's a lot to ask. And I think under the circumstances and looking at the restraints that they've had to go through in servicing and providing business, and then obviously the winter came, not that many people were eating out. I just think that we have to take that into consideration. But to Ross's point, then do we take into consideration every other fee? You got to look at property tax and all of this stuff because everybody suffered in this economy. And then you have to take in the city manager's point where he's saying, we're asking employees to take pay cuts or potentially, so it's just, I think that we have to be considerate, but it has to be done all across the board. And to that point, I would just say, is there a timeline on this, or could we wait until next week to see what the federal stimulus package looks like? I mean, they're expected to pass it in the second week of March. That's been their goal for some time now. I mean, would that hurt us to see if we get any financial assistance?
Alderwoman Tierney.
Oh, thank you, Acting Chair. A couple of things. This has been my mute
temporarily.
Right. This has been presented now since January 25th, and the initial request was for us to consider it. I think we've met that responsibility, and I thank the Finance Committee for bringing this before you. But there's two things I need to stress, and I know I'm politically tone deaf, so I'll just continue that. With the restaurants, we have done everything in our power to keep them afloat with these recovery zones. And the objective of that was for them to serve liquor, starting from the beginning where we supported Governor Hogan's executive order where they actually could use their liquor license to do off carry. The other thing I need to say, and is very important, is I kept saying, well, let's wait for money. But from an email from Assistant City Attorney Carrie Berger, she was very cautionary about committing COVID money to liquor fee wavering. So even if we receive COVID money, it may not, and she can speak more of this, it may not be able to be used. So I think within the financial atmosphere that we're in and potentially having a $7 million deficit, I think I would ask you to sort of conclude on this. And so I can turn around and tell Anthony, look, we're in this together. And unfortunately we can't do it right now. And I'm not on the Finance Committee. I can't make that vote, but I do want to say I really appreciate all of the due diligence we've made in asking any sort of scenarios. One thing before Kerry speaks is Alderman Gay, they do have an option to split their payment in half. So there is a payment plan in the code. And then as far as reducing the fees, as I said in my first testimony about this, we haven't raised those fees for 10 years. Actually, 10 years ago, we reduced them. Well, they were like proposed to be higher, and then we reduced them back. And I think the assistant city clerk can verify that as well. But we haven't raised them for 10 years. So I think that's all I want to say. But I'd like clarification from Carrie on using the COVID money for liquor license waiving. piece.
Sure. Yeah, my concern about waiving liquor license fees was it would sort of go in lockstep with a revenue reimbursement in those regards, as opposed to sort of providing a grant to reimburse the businesses. So if you're waiving the fees, then the city would essentially be waiving the fees and then using the CARES Act money to reimburse ourselves for those fees. And that's what I defined as to what would be considered revenue replacement. I said, there's the option of providing grants to reimburse small businesses, to reimburse the small businesses for the cost of any sort of business interruption, but to do it in a manner that's it would have to be done in a manner that's not consistent with just outright waiving the liquor license fees. So that was Alderman Tierney, you're making me reach back to 2 months ago when I first gave you this opinion. So I'm trying to remember, but my concern off the top of my head was that it was more along the lines of what would be considered revenue replacement as opposed to providing grants to the businesses.
Which our Office of Economic, Hope Stewart has been the vehicle to do that with the $20,000 grants, et cetera.
Ross, do you have anything to say?
I think I said my piece, but
Okay.
Alderwoman Finlayson is.
Yes, Alderwoman Finlayson.
The document that Jody sent us this morning does break the fees down into 2 payments. Is there let me ask, what would the impact be if they were spread over 4 payments throughout the year instead of 2 payments? How would that impact? I'm just trying to come up with a mechanism to give some relief without waiving fees. But if we allowed them to pay, quarterly as opposed to, twice a year.
Okay, so the list that you're looking at from this morning is only those who chose to pay in 2 payments. It's not everybody who paid. But if the effect of deferring the payments and when they have to be made would impact which fiscal year we can recognize that revenue in. If it comes in past August, we would have to recognize it in FY22, when normally both the first payments or those who pay up front are recognized in the current fiscal year, the year we invoice, which is this year. So deferring the payments just spreads out, it pushes the revenue into the following fiscal year.
Okay, which potentially could give us a deficit in that category for that.
So it would lower the revenues this year. It would increase the revenues for next year. And where that leaves us for 21, I don't know yet because I haven't caught my projections up on the revenue side yet. See how well we're doing on revenues.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Alderman Gay.
This is in consideration to, continuing revenue for the businesses to the point that Ellie made earlier. And I know this was discussed, last year when we actually tried it. Why don't we allow for businesses to continue to serve in that way? Can't the city place, and maybe Assistant City Attorney could help me here, is there a way that we can put in place rules where businesses can continue to sell liquor on the go or in certain zones? I know where in the county that I went to school in, there were options in certain areas where you could take liquor to go. And I think that just shows the businesses that, look, we are committed to helping you continue to create additional sources of revenue. And it helps downtown. We've seen that when we were trying. It was packed. And I think that's what we need in the summer as we hope to rejuvenate the economy there. I mean, can we consider something like that?
So I would have to double check, but I believe the governor's executive order still allows for the carry out liquor sales to occur. On top of that, the county recently became more in line with the state restrictions on restaurants. So now restaurants can stay open until the time stated in their liquor license. So all of the restaurants can stay open until 1 or 2 a.m. or anything like that. There are no restrictions on closing time unless you start to sort of get into the recovery zone period. But as it stands now, and I'll double check on the executive order, but I'm 90% sure that it still allows for that carry out liquor sales.
But did we put a stop on it? Because I know, like, I used to go to Harvest all the time and get the to go. They have said that they can't do that anymore. And I remember there was an issue where the city was saying, oh, it was getting a little out of hand. Did we put a stop on that? Has that been, communicated to the businesses? Because maybe they feel that way. So maybe we should make it clear that that is not the case.
Well, so there's a difference in doing carry out liquor or alcohol sales to go and walking around with an open container. So that those laws have not changed, that individuals can't walk around downtown or anywhere with an open container of alcohol. That was never permitted by the governor. That was never permitted by anyone at the state, local, city level or anything like that. So that is has remained unchanged and is never actually allowed for. But if you were to go to a restaurant and ask for a bottle of wine or something to go, you would be permitted to have that bottle to go. You just can't walk around downtown chugging it or something. Okay, and so that can't be changed because we can't, or municipalities can be, you can enforce the code, but you can't. What is the rule with the state mandate? We can't be. We can be more restrictive. We can't be more lenient. Yeah, and so if the state rule is that you can't have to go or carry, but I'm sure over the bridge there are certain counties, and I remember this when I was an intern in the state delegation. There were cases that I had to research for open carry. So there are certain municipalities in the state that are able to for open carry rules. So it would, I think, with the city of Annapolis and our tourist population, we would consider that in the zone downtown. Now, obviously, I don't want to speak for the alderwoman because that's her ward, but you would think that would be something that we would consider for purposes of revenue and, I don't know. It would make sense. Is that so? We can't do that? I would have to double check, but I think it's also a state provision that you can't have an open container. And so I'm not sure about other municipalities allowing for that. I can double check and I will double check, but no other jurisdiction to my knowledge is suspending any sort of.
Maybe it's a permit or something.
Yeah, it could have been events or something, because if there's an event, that would be different. But just sort of walking around, Vegas style and having open containers, I'm pretty sure that's a statewide prohibition, and that hasn't been altered in any way since the pandemic.
Okay, thank you very much.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Yeah, just to make clear, the executive order has not changed, and they can sell alcohol with their carry out. And the situation with Harvest and Armadillos and others was they were essentially selling it as like an outside bar, and that in COVID, that was just really bad because people were gathering and creating this outside bar atmosphere. And so if that was something we would consider, I think we'd get a lot of pushback even from the police department. It's just sort of opening up a can of worms. And it definitely isn't something we want to consider during the pandemic, with people clustering like that. But I do want to say I do think we should give a definitive. I have to reiterate, we have to give a definitive yes, yay or nay or something to Mr. Clark at this time. I'd recommend, even though I'm not on the committee.
So perhaps it's time for a motion, Alderman Payon.
Okay, perhaps it's time for a motion.
I would move that we suspend any further consideration. I would point out that we're 4 months from the close of this fiscal year. In any event, some of the things that Alderman Gay was suggesting, I think require legislation and may actually require us going to the state because they enable us to do this. But by the time we would get into anything like that, we would be essentially at the end of the fiscal year. So I think we've given this due diligence, and I thank Alderwoman Tierney for bringing it to our attention. But for me, I just don't think we're in a financial position to do anything to change anything that we have going on right now. So I would move that we close the topic.
All right, do I hear a second? You're on mute.
I'm willing to second it, but I'd like clarification of exactly what the motion is.
Well, there is no legislation or anything else we're taking up here. This is a consideration of recommending doing something different with the finance of the liquor license fees. And my argument would be we do nothing different. First of all, going to multiple collections puts more burden on the city clerk, Cindy Gaines, and it'd be a huge administrative undertaking to keep track if we went to multiple, like 4 times a year collections, and I'm not even sure we can do that under the code. So I guess my sense is it was brought to us by Alderman Tierney for us to consider. We've given it very robust consideration, and from my perspective, and I'm only speaking for myself, I just don't think we're in a position to do anything further with this.
So that very much sounds like we have no legislation on the table and there's no action necessary. If we want to keep the status quo, then we do nothing. So I don't think that a motion is in order.
I tend to agree with you that I think we just do nothing. We've had our discussion. I think we've looked into doing things and found that there really isn't much we can do at this point. Frankly, if somebody comes up with something that we didn't think of, I think we can consider it at that time. We may not be able to do that if we follow up on Ross's motion. So we've gone far afield on from the liquor fees, but if you have something to add, Alderwoman Tierney, by all means.
Yeah, I do just want to say that the environment has changed significantly since the initial request was in. That was when they had to close at 10 o'clock. Now the hours are expanding. And I just want to tell you all that the mayor is very supportive of keeping the recovery zones through the spring as long as it takes, which is a commitment of city services as well. So I just want you all to know that we're doing everything within our capacity to keep these restaurants afloat. I just want you to know that, and with the full mayor's support.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. The next order of business is an update from the finance director, Ms. Jody Dickinson. Madam Finance Director, the floor is yours.
So I'll just say that we're very busy here. We've got a lot of projects going on. I've got a full draft of my CAFR ready to review. I just have to find some time to look it over. It takes a lot of very careful ticking and tying. We're working on the budget. This month of March is a critical month for us. We're pulling a budget book together, and we will be communicating some of the contents to you, how they're going to look earlier on, because we may be changing we're trying to use the OpenGov budget book module, and the information will all be there. It's just going to look a little different, and we want you to see this first and get your thoughts before we complete the creation of the book. And so Katie's working really hard on that. We have I'm going to work on getting updated cost projections to you in conjunction with what we're putting in the budget book for projections and for our purposes of seeing where we're at this year and next year for revenues and expenses. And other than that, we're trying to get this, the Granicus host compliance site up. We're in the testing stage. They've created a test site for us to get in and look at, but that requires some time. So we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. So that's moving along. It's just moving along slowly. So,
all right.
Anybody have any questions?
Any questions or comments? Thank you very much, Madam Finance Director. Is there anything for the good of the order? I believe we've come to the end of our agenda. Seeing nothing, do I hear a motion?
So moved. We adjourn.
What is moved? I think you have to
adjourn. Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hell no. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, Fred, for taking over.
Thank you very much.
What's going on?
Ross, I'm sorry you kind of got a little bit shut out there.